Hi.
Short Bus Debate Club. It's a bus rolling.
I can get on board. Hello, I'm Darren Jolly.
It's time to get this short bus started. So let's roll and on with the show. Hello and welcome to Short Bus Debate Club. This is Brian Courtney.
I'm Darren.
That guy is Darren Jolly.
Fuck it. Sorry. No, I'm not sorry. Well, I'm not saying sorry anymore because I'm not fucking sorry at all. Fuck it.
Okay, so we are going to do, this is supposed to be the lighter version of the week.
I doubt it, though.
Since we're talking about prison movies, I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. But we're going to make our best effort. But, you know, like I said in previous episodes, we're always pretty fucking lighthearted about stuff.
There are clearly some lenses on prisons that you know, when we do the sci-fi stuff, it'll be kind of, you know, I mean, it's still like horrific, you know, the circumstances that people get put in, but you know, we laugh at horrible things almost constantly. So,
dude, if you can't laugh, I think the only other fucking option is crying. And then eventually it does lead to that, probably. I don't know.
Even the tragedy has to be a comedy. I mean, to be sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's why most comedians are fucking depressed.
Yeah, Lenny. What happened to Lenny Bruce? You know,
Robin Williams.
Yeah, indeed, dude. And they were
Richard Pryor.
Yeah. Well, you know.
I mean, he didn't do it.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug. You know.
Rick James.
I'm Rick James, bitch. Cocaine's a hell of a drug. We love you, Dave Chappelle. I really loved your version of Creep that you did with the Foo Fighters, which was just fucking hilarious listening to Dave Chappelle sing fucking, I'm a freak, I'm a loser.
Oh, that Creep.
Yeah, the Radiohead song, yeah.
I thought you meant the, and so I creep. Yeah, and I can't even remember. It's those chicks from the 90s.
Like the Dixie Chicks or something like that? Some other chicks from the 90s.
No.
Because if you're saying it's those ones, that's sort of like an absolute. You got to keep
it the same chicks that sang Waterfalls? Is it TLC? I think it's TLC.
Okay. Waterfalls, was that like for a song that is in an area of music that I don't love because it's so fucking poppy. That was an alright song.
R&B sometimes gets poppy, but that's because there's so many fucking stations that'll play that stuff.
You know, Beyonce
Top
got
40.
her 32nd Grammy tonight. She broke the record. It was applicable. So, all right.
I know. So, if I actually believed in any of the fucking things that they do, you know, like
Grammys especially, dude. I mean, it's there's
just
no objective. I mean,
all
like
political.
Film, we're thinking about doing one because we talk so much about film. We're thinking about doing one on the Academy Awards, but the problem with the Academy Awards is the same thing as the problem with the Golden Globes. At some point in time, you're just buying awards, or you're giving them to people that they said you didn't give them to from before, and you're trying to make up, or
somebody died and you're trying to kiss ass, or whatever.
The fact that black people didn't get awards for so long
and got ripped off by a bunch of producers or people taking credit for shit that wasn't theirs.
So you try to make up for it by, I mean, like giving Denzel Washington one for Training Day. I mean, Malcolm X was one of the fucking greatest. He was so good as fucking Malcolm X. Denzel Washington had a lot of great fucking roles.
Training Day was a good fucking movie, but I would have rather have given it to Ethan Hawke than Denzel Washington.
But they gave it to him for, I mean, it was clear. I mean, that was like one of those moments. Like, I think that when they gave it to Halle Berry for Monster Ball, she was awesome in that film, dude. And that was like a racy fucking movie. That was not a, you know, like a super fucking PC thing.
No, it was fucking depressive as shit, dude.
That was about prisons. But wasn't he out of prison or something like that?
He was a prison guard.
Oh, okay.
And he was kind of a racist, but they had both lost somebody, and so they started to console each other.
Billy Bob Thornton, right? Yeah. And then they fucked. That's right.
Yeah. So that was the first prison movie we were going to talk about, apparently.
That was a segue back in.
And that was a fucking accident. entirely. Um, okay, so enough about the Grammys and Academy Awards and all of that shit. But again, we're gonna try to keep it light. So I don't even really know where the fuck to start. I mean, because there are movies. Okay, so let's say Blow. There's a substantial portion of that movie where they're in prison and where he actually learns or figures out that he can make more money off of coke than he does smuggling weed, right?
I never saw Blow, so
You never saw Blow?
no.
Dude, Bobcat Goldthwait is fucking awesome in that movie, and he's only got a small
I was
part.
gonna say I don't hear the line Bobcat Goldthwait was awesome in that movie. I don't think I've ever heard that sentence before ever in my life.
He's like, can I have a bump? And he's like, sure.
He doesn't go, can I have a bump?
And he takes it and he's like, I can't feel my face. I mean, I can feel my face, but I can't feel my face.
And he's not like that spastic person that he always was in those 80s movies.
Yeah, no, he's not.
Interesting.
So there's a part of it that, like I said, is in prison.
Yeah,
but
and he learned. So what happened?
But I wouldn't call it a prison movie.
Yeah. Okay. So what?
But I wouldn't call Die Hard a Christmas movie.
That's two apples and oranges for this context, I think. Okay, because like when we were talking about this coming up, I mean, there's movies that are clearly prison movies. Like Shawshank Redemption is clearly a prison movie.
Absolutely.
No Escape with Ray Liotta and the Dillon brother Kevin is clearly a prison movie. Fortress, did you ever see that one with Chris? Yeah, that's clear. But those take place for the vast part
Bad
of the movie.
Boys is definitely a prison
I
movie.
haven't seen that one.
American Me is definitely a
That's
prison
on my
movie.
list too, and that's good. Edward James Olmos or James Edward. How do you say his
Escape
name?
from Alcatraz is definitely a prison movie.
Clint Eastwood. Okay.
So that's where I was trying to figure out the break because okay, so I interrupted you.
No, but the turn I was going to take is because those are ones that follow that same pattern for the most part. I mean, if you're escaping from a prison, then the prison is the centerpiece from where I mean, maybe that's what the question is, right? Because like we watched Sleepers, right? And Sleepers is a movie that does not take place in prison, but the experiences from within prison that the juveniles, the kids experience is what drives everything that happens in that film.
Yeah, and they flash back to the juvenile detention thing
Again,
quite a bit
yeah.
Throughout the movie, and that's a fucked up movie, and probably not the lightest of discussions, but
No, dude, it captures like one of the most important themes that you're going to get from any prison movie. Like when a person is in a place where they have no power and where people that may have been formerly powerless find power over people that are powerless and the way that they exact that power over them in some pretty fucking obscene ways. So just like Shawshank, in the beginning of Shawshank, well, and throughout Shawshank, because in Shawshank you're getting it from both prisoners and you're getting it from the guards and you're getting it from the warden, all at the same time. I mean, Andy Dufresne's taking it in all orifices at the same time.
And I would imagine
orifices? Sorry.
Well, if I would say that orifice is Greek, and so you would just say orifices.
Okay. I didn't know that. I didn't know that Greek was the. So if it's
most people say like cactus,
cacti,
and that's incorrect. It's cactuses.
And that's because
I shit you not.
Was a Greek word.
Yeah.
And so it's only when it's Latin that it does that thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll have to. I'm gonna have to call Janae on that one, see if that's true.
What?
This is one of those moments that it would be much better
if you guys had the There's visuals. Two of those.
He just told me he was number one in both hands.
So again, Sleepers. Great fucking movie. I've watched it a ton of times.
It has to be a prison movie.
Though. I would say so.
So then these other films, so like Blow is about cocaine. It's about him being a coke dealer, right?
Yeah. So he started off smuggling weed, and he got arrested in Chicago, and they threw him in federal prison in I don't know. I want to say 76, something like that.
Just for weed?
1976. It was a lot of weed.
What is a lot of weed?
Tons.
Okay.
Like 6 tons, I think,
tons
is
of
what it
weed
was.
is a lot of weed.
But it might have been 3. I can't remember the number.
12,000 pounds, 6,000 pounds.
It was a lot of fucking weed.
6 of one.
So
the other.
he gets thrown in jail. Colombian guy happens to be his cellmate, and he's like, "What are you in for?" And he said, "Murder." And he goes, "Well, how do you only have 2 years for murder?" And it turns out he finally says, "I smuggled all of this weed in my airplane, blah blah blah."
So he lied to him.
He takes him down to Colombia and introduces him to Pablo Escobar.
Really?
Pablo Escobar asks him how much he can move, and pretty soon he's got a fucking fleet of planes and he's moving coke all over. And he gives this stat, like, if you were using coke in the early 80s, there was like a 79% chance that it was my coke.
So it's a Pablo Escobar is obviously a real person, right?
Yes.
So the story is based on a true story at the very least.
Yeah, I think he was supposed to be paroled in sometime in the 2000s. His name was George Young.
George Young.
Like psychiatrist.
Like Carl Young. Okay,
yeah.
J-U-N-G. Okay.
But I think he ended up dying in prison.
Oh, so he never got out.
Well, he got out, paroled, and then he was having trouble with his fucking ex-wife and the daughter. Because I guess you could consider parole prison too. But so he was having problems with the ex-wife, and he wanted to spend more time with the daughter, but she wouldn't let him because he wasn't paying child support, whatever. So he bumps into this old friend of his that used to smuggle drugs for him. And he's like, "Yeah, let's get something going again." And that dude had been pinched prior. And so
he was setting him up?
He was setting him up, and the DEA grabbed him, and fucking he got the violation of parole plus the fucking new charges and went back in.
If you're gonna commit a crime, you gotta accept the responsibility of go rot in jail, motherfucker.
Right.
And I understand, like we were talking about in the previous episode, how and of course we're going to talk about a ton later on this week, the ways in which the war on drugs and the way that they were constructing consequences to where you basically be stuck in prison for the vast majority of your life, which created the incentive to where, I mean, the rhetorical disposition, at least the way they were selling it at first, it was a lot because of the mafia, right? This was some way to get them to break up, like the Omerta kind of concepts of those.
Well, that's where they came up with the RICO predicates.
But when coke came in, like, because they would not roll over on people that were inside the family for a long time. I mean, that was sort of like
that's true.
That's a Martha, right? How do you say it?
That sounds right to me. Fuck, I'm not Italian. I don't know.
Fuck you. But once that happened, then and I get, like, but if you're going to choose to involve yourself in that industry, and that if you got 300, if you got 300 pounds of coke, that you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison if you get caught with it, or if you even get caught in relation to it, conspiracy to distribute, whatever the charges end up play out to being. And I'm a lot different than I was as a kid. I'm not really a good criminal anymore, but I still think the rules are the rules,
But we've talked about this before. Not only the legalization of drugs, but so if you want to take away the power of the people that are doing shit illegally, then make the shit that they're doing legal. So the mafia really started off in extortion and protection, right?
Yeah, like you'd have to pay them insurance. It's like insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They moved into prostitution and numbers running. And then eventually drugs happened. I mean, in the 50s and 60s, heroin was making a big fucking smack.
No pun intended.
Right? So if you don't want them to do illegal shit,
make it legal. Yeah, I got you. And of course, you and I are both in the same place for this. But I mean, and we gotta stick to the movie side of this thing. But of course, what you're suggesting there, when we were talking about private prisons, and there were, like, the reason why I brought up No Escape and Fortress so quick. These movies are hacky movies. These are not like movies that Ray Liotta was not going to win an Academy Award, and neither was Christopher Lambert, right? But having said that, you watch these films and No Escape, as Brian pointed out to me last night before I rewatched it, was a movie that was made in 1994, and it was supposed to be what 32 years in the future, 28 years in the future. So it was the year 2022, so it's actually already passed, right? But there were all these private prisons that they would put people into for various different reasons, and then there was this prison that they would put them into that was like the last one, where you set them on this island, and you sort of leave them, and it's only men, and you leave them to their own devices. So there's two groups. There's the outsiders and there's the insiders. The outsiders are like sort of like King of the Hill, you know,
Lord of the Flies
Yeah,
type
Lord of
shit.
the yeah, very Lord of the Flies, yeah, except for grown fucking men who know how to kill each other and have fashioned weapons and shit like that. And then the insiders were this group of individuals that banded together consciously. They tried to build their own society in this way. They had elevators and like beds and fucking shelter, and it was sort of like you could see the critique was the people who had no way or no idea of rehabilitation, and the insiders were sort of like demonstrating in a world where it was suggested that people couldn't be, or these were the last people that couldn't be rehabilitated actively or actually effectively rehabilitated themselves through the community that they built together. And so much so that Ray Liotta's character, he was he's like a Navy SEAL kind of person.
Yeah,
He had
former military.
on a helicopter. He had partaken in an action where 340 some odd plus people, women and children, was the what it was suggested, were killed by him and the group of people that he was involved in. And when he realized the consequences of his actions, he went and killed his superior officer, like fucking right in front of God and everybody, which is why he ended up in the first in this little shitty prison for which was I think even worse than the one that they ended up putting him in. Absalom was what they called the island, right?
Yeah.
And then he ends up on Absalom, but Ray Liotta's character is skeptical of any power structure at that point in time because he's seen them like power structures pervert. Like you say, this is our ideal, this is what we're aiming for, but then you do all these horrible things in the name of what you're doing, which perverts the concept of hierarchy for him. He doesn't believe in any hierarchy. When he gets on the island in the first place, he's with the outsiders, but he's like, "Fuck you, motherfuckers! I'm not gonna have anything to do with you." And then he gets to the insiders, and it's a little culty. I mean, when he first comes in there, they call the leader of it the father, which is super fucking hokey.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. But I mean, dude, it was, and they admitted, the reason that we're able to build that little society was because they were there before the others were, the other outsiders. So it kind of begs the question too, if you're not strong enough to get out of the outsiders,
the power structure that would be impinging itself upon your whole existence.
Because the leader made a joke: "Stay here. You can eat all you want. Anybody you can catch and kill, eat."
They meant that. They were cannibals, to be sure.
And so, if you're not strong enough to get out of that scenario, and you try to, make yourself part of what they're doing, then
they're just
you're
gonna fuck you up like right from Jump Street. Yeah.
I mean, the only reason Ray Liotta was able to get out was because he had military training, or at least that's what they made it seem like.
You know what the stupidest part of the movie was, though? I mean, I like the private prison concept, especially doing that in '94 and it being so clearly a part of our, like, obviously they hit the nail right on the head with that one, but the father had taken notes about his activity over the course of the last 13, because that's how long, right? It was 13 years old. That's what the black fellow, I can't remember what his name is.
Ernie Hudson.
Okay, yeah, Ernie Hudson. So he says, I've been here since the beginning, and we built this stuff together, But he gives him his book, and the father is dying, and he says, blow the lid on this place. So there's this assumption that there's a society where they're going to actually give a fuck. And if there's one thing that after seeing like the WikiLeaks stuff shown to the American population, it's that for all intents and purposes, as long as we're comfortable, we really don't give a fuck about anybody else in the rest of the world. So.
No, I mean, look at what happened in Attica in the 70s,
Yeah,
dude.
and that was a fucking massacre. I mean, they fucking were yeah, it was
But,
not good.
maybe the thought was, well, fuck it, they're prisoners. They probably deserved it.
Yeah. We rational, yeah,
Turn to
socially,
Sesame
the
Street.
royal we, the big we rationalizes, yeah, the actions of fascism, totalitarianism, what the ruthless, heavy hand of the state coming down on people as rational or justifiable would be a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Because yeah, we want to rationalize it away because we don't want to have to deal with.
That's kind of what I was thinking when he said that too. Um, that and that, like, Ray Liotta was just going to go to the press so that he could talk about the military thing that happened.
Which he had,
because he said he needed someone to listen. Nobody had listened before.
And he had tried. I
Yeah.
tried. Nobody listened. So why is it suddenly going to be different the second time around?
Yeah. I mean, so what the fuck? You're going to escape and then turn yourself in to tell the truth, and then nobody's going to give a fuck.
It's the Slavoj Žižek moment where he says, I'd sell my mother into slavery to see B for Vendetta 2. Like you have the cathartic moment where they escape, just like you have the cathartic moment where you overthrow the government. But the next day, when you face like having to get the hard work done, having to build a new society, or having to get people to listen to you to where they will go and say, what you're doing to these people is wrong, and we're not going to let it happen anymore.
I just thought about something.
What's that?
It's not cactus. It's octopus. It's octopuses.
Oh, okay.
Not
so
octopi.
Cactuses, cacti.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that we got that straight. Then we won't have to go and fix it in the future in our making sure that whatever it is that we're trying to, like wisdom we're trying to bestow on humanity, is on the right path. You're doing a fine job, Brian.
Thanks.
You and your octopi.
Octopuses.
Octopuses.
Yeah, so I mean, admittedly, it's a fucked up movie, but I don't know why I've always kind of dug it. Maybe I just have some fucking fascination with subcultures. And
you mean like the way that they created these different groups, or what do you mean?
Well, I mean just the prison movies altogether. I mean,
prison as a subculture, you mean?
Yeah, maybe prisoners or people that are committing crimes or whatever. And I don't know, maybe it's like a sociological study or some shit. I don't know.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, like socially, we don't really look at, like you said, like in Attica, they're all criminals. Like people don't really want to think about, like, so take Sleepers for instance, right? These four friends end up in a under they steal a hot dog. How do you call it? Hot dog cart, yeah. And it goes down these stairs and runs into this guy, and so they destroy property, and they almost kill a guy in the process of fucking with this fucking hot dog cart. And they all end up in juvenile facility. One of them for 6 months to a year, and three of them for 12 months to 18 months. Right? That's what.
That sounds right to me. Yeah. I can't remember the time.
So in there, horrible things happen to these kids. They get fucking. I mean, the best things that happen is they get abused, but they get raped. They force the guards force them to give them blowjobs. I mean, I wish they would have thought about it like Andy Dufresne is, where if you put anything you put in my mouth, I'm gonna bite off. Because at that point in time, you might as well just fucking.
Why even give a motherfucker warning, dude? Just chomp it.
Yeah. So, but what these kids go through, and how are they? 13, 14 years old, 15 maybe.
I don't know if they ever said. I mean, they're playing stickball
they're like
on the streets.
They're really like middle school kids. They're not even high school kids yet.
I wouldn't think so.
And they just what happens to them is brutal. Two of the kids, when they get out, they become they kill on behalf of the organized crime in the area. They just hitmen for hire essentially is what they suggest, right?
Well, so and the media gave that gang this title, but
because it's based on a story.
There was a gang in New York called the Westies, and it was the media that called them the Westies.
Not them. They didn't self-identify.
I don't think they ever said we're the Westies. The media also called them Irish, which there were some Italian members, because they were from Hell's Kitchen, so it wasn't just Irish people there. They were on the west side of Manhattan, but The gang was formed like 66, I think, by a dude named James Coonan.
He's the one that told the story, though, wasn't he? The one
I
that
don't
they said at
think
the
so.
end. I thought it was that they somebody they said this person stuck by their story, even though the New York.
Oh, well, that was the dude that wrote the book. So
Okay.
there's actually a book called Sleepers, and I can't remember who wrote it.
Okay,
But
keep telling the story. I'll figure that out.
so the Westies were violent. I mean, and they ended up doing hits for not only themselves because they were fighting against Mickey Spillane's crew, which was also Irish.
Lorenzo Carcaterra was the name of the author.
Um, but they were also doing hits for the Genovese family. So
the Genovese family. That's obviously an Italian family.
So yeah, it's one of the five families.
Okay.
So I think the story is true. The state of New York says it's not. Nothing like that ever happened in a juvenile correction facility. We have no records of that. None of this ever happened. But like I said, the Westies, or whatever the fuck they called themselves, were a real gang. And they really killed Mickey Spillane.
The thing that they said about but the thing that they said about how they burned the records after 7 years, even if something like that did happen, there'd be no way to find anything out about it, presumably, from back then.
Right. I wouldn't. But I mean, I don't know. There would have to be. There's always a fucking record that
somewhere. Yeah. Okay.
Is around somewhere. A fucking receipt.
Well, maybe it wasn't a system. Maybe somebody could say it wasn't a systematic, but unfortunately, we can imagine situations where people that are in power like that would extract a pretty heavy toll on
and
completely defenseless kids.
If you remember that one guard came in and said, "Cut it out, Noakes.
Yeah.
It's my shift.
Yeah.
And quit your shit." And he goes, "No, I'll do this." And he goes, "No, you're eating into my shift. Go."
Yeah.
And if not for him, then who knows what would have happened to those kids that day. It just happened the next day instead. But I don't know. It's definitely a fucked up movie.
Why did I segue over to that though? We're talking about that other one. There was something about that specific Sleepers movie.
Well, we were talking about No Escape, and then
I
said something about fuck. I don't know why you segued back over to it.
It's a fucked up fucking movie, dude.
There are a lot of them that are fucked up.
Prison is not a good place.
So there are a bunch of them that I want to mention, but a lot of them end up tying to the war on drugs and or gangs. And so I don't know if I should talk about them more than once, or if I should fucking put them in my pocket, or what.
No, we're talking about prisons. If there's a prison movie, bring it up.
Well, okay, so so I said that Escape from Alcatraz is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, why? That's like Clint Eastwood not as a fucking cowboy.
Most of the movies I like Clint Eastwood in are not as a cowboy.
Like the early ones where he was acting.
Yeah, in the 60s when he was in the spaghetti westerns. Yeah, I know. But I mean, I don't know. It was just a great movie. And again, maybe it's like the Count of Monte Cristo type shit where you're getting one over on the man, right?
So that's on the list of ones that I like. American Me. That's like ones that I have to watch.
Well, so you read about The Escape, right? Or because I know you've been to San Francisco before. No?
I have been to San Francisco, but I didn't ever get to go to Alcatraz.
I haven't either. And all the times I've been there, I never get to go because one time it was fucking closed for a week. Another time, you got to be there from 8 to 5.
And you have to be there you have to set the fucking thing 6 months in advance because they fill up so quick.
No, so they did all of this badass shit. Like they made fucking fake heads out of paper mache.
Is that one based on a real story too, or no?
Yeah, those guys really fucking bolted.
Him and 2 other guys, right? There's 3 of them.
There were supposed to be 4, but one of them ended up chickening out. So 3 of them left. They never found the bodies. So they say that they're presumed drowned, but whether or not that happened, I don't know. Nobody does. For all we know, they're down in fucking Bolivia hanging out with Butch and Sundance's corpse.
And Sean Connery
Yeah.
from The Rock.
Are you considering that a prison movie?
Dude, but I mean, it has to be a prison movie by default because it's called The Rock.
Right.
But having said that, like there was one I was watching earlier today. It had Vince Vaughn in it, 99 something or another. But it's just an action adventure prison movie. I mean, it's just a straight prison break, dumb fucking movie, dude. You don't know what the movie is because it was so fucking bad that I puked in my mouth like 7 times watching the stupid fucking thing.
Really?
Yeah, it was awful. I mean, I couldn't finish watching it. I just watched little bits and pieces of it and was like, dude, this is dumb.
Okay, so
But Escape from Alcatraz.
Escape from Alcatraz is a Clint Eastwood movie. One of my, I think I have seen that shit. Clint Eastwood did another movie with Kevin Costner in, I don't know, the late 90s.
Kevin Costner.
It was called The Perfect World. And Laura Dern was in it. Those are the three I remember. Clint Eastwood, Kevin Costner, and Laura Dern. So Laura Dern and Clint Eastwood are in the process of trying to apprehend Kevin Costner because he escaped from prison.
That's weird. I think it'd have to be either Clint Eastwood or Laura Dern. I just don't see Kevin Costner as the escape from prison type.
Well, the reason I kind of mention this is kind of because of Sleepers, kind of because of the trauma thing that we talked about before, and when we were earlier in the week. But so they never show Kevin Costner in prison, but he breaks out and he ends up at this single mother's house, and he grabs the kid and takes the kid.
Mother Laura Dern?
No. She's like a social worker for the state of Texas, and Clint Eastwood is a Texas Ranger.
Okay.
So he kidnaps the kid, and then he kills the guy that broke out of prison with him because the guy was trying to fuck with the kid. So Kevin Costner blows him away. Well, at the end, the kid ends up killing Kevin Costner.
Really?
And Kevin Costner says, you did the right thing, Buzz. That's what he called him because the kid said he wanted to be called Buzz. But you need to know I would have never, ever hurt you. Never. The entire time, Clint Eastwood is trying to save Kevin Costner because he feels guilty because they tell this whole story about him being raised by a whore, and he starts breaking into cars and stealing cars and everything else. Well, Clint Eastwood was the guy that fucking originally arrested him way back when, got him thrown into youth reform, and got him conditioned to do this shit. So when he gets out of the youth authority, he goes and commits more crimes, and they throw him back in. So Clint Eastwood's feeling guilty, and he's trying to save him the whole time, and then he ends up.
Well, that's not. I mean, now you're making me remember kind of what I was saying. Those two guys became what they became. The two friends of the four guys in.
Yeah, in the Westies. Yeah.
Yeah, they became what they became because of what. And I don't want to get in any bullshit fucking discussions about whether or not what they're doing or what their lives turn into is right or wrong. If you want to have that conversation with me, then we have to start talking about concepts like trying to repair people that are totally fucking broken by a fucking system that does not give a fuck about them. That sat there because we don't want to spend the money to rehabilitate people. We don't want to use the emotional labor that it takes to do that. We don't want to use our creativity because we're too busy fucking giving money to fucking Pfizer to make fake fucking COVID fucking vaccines that are essentially not doing or doing very little for us if they're really doing anything. So go ahead, you can put that on, say that this guy's saying propaganda now, fucking motherfuckers. But these kids, I mean, seriously, you just watch the movie, think about whether or not it could be possible, and you have to know that things like this happen. And when a person, like whether it's Kevin Costner as a kid because of what Clint Eastwood did to him, or these two kids because of what Kevin Bacon and his fucking round of fucking evil ass motherfucking
Guards.
juvenile guards do, um, you have to at least understand that had that not happened to them, their future would have been different, to be sure. They would not have automatically been exacting revenge, going through the fantasy revenge thing for their entire life until they do the stupidest thing in the world, walk up to a guy in the middle of a fucking dinner and kill him like in a fucking restaurant where God and everybody can see him.
Well, to be clear, they were already killers prior to killing Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, no, but they were killers that were smart killers, walking up to somebody in the middle of dinner. Like they said, he had four murder raps that they assumed that he had done, but they didn't have the ability to prove it.
Yeah.
That's because he didn't walk up to those people in the middle of dinner and open fucking shoot him in the leg, shoot him in the dick. Because that's the first thing they did: shoot him in the fucking dick, shoot him in the fucking leg, shoot him in the arm, shoot him in the other arm, sit there and let him hurt, and then fucking execute him.
Which was fucking brilliant. If you guys haven't seen that movie, you need to watch it.
It's important, but don't do it when you're don't do it if you're already feeling shitty, because it's not it's pretty traumatic. And trauma, when it comes to the way that prisons are being expressed in all of these films, is pretty fucking real.
Well, and we could go down a different path.
Well, let's go down a different path.
So, My Cousin Vinny.
That's a prison movie. That's not a prison movie, dude.
Ralph Macchio and that fucking kid are in prison the entire time, dude. And it's my favorite part of the entire fucking thing is when they first get thrown into prison and he's like, "Do you know what happens in these places?" And he goes, "Yeah, I know what happens in these places." And he goes, "Well, what if some big guy comes up to us and he wants us to do something so that we'll, and he goes, "It's just Stan, it's just us in the cell." And he goes, "Well, what about those cots?" And then, like, the next scene, Joe Pesci walks
He shows up. Yeah, that scene. I knew you were going for that scene. That scene is fucking hilarious.
He's like, "Hey, you're going to get fucked one way or another."
Oh, Vinny. Yeah, that kid is fucking. But dude, that's a movie about like
lawyers.
Hokey lawyers.
So it's a lawyer movie, not a prison movie.
Well, the thing that I mean, maybe you could say because what does he do? He pisses off the judge and he holds him in contempt, and then Joe Pesci gets to go sleep. Meanwhile, Marissa Tomei is like, "I'm not going to help you with anything anymore. Fuck you."
Right. Well, I just figured I'd try to,
lighten it up a little bit. Yeah.
The other one that
Marissa
could
Tomei,
be,
she got
an Oscar for that one.
Yeah. That another weird one to give a bit. She did great. Don't get me wrong, but it seems like an odd role for a best
Oh yeah,
actress.
you blend. Picture this. You're a little doe-eyed deer.
A doe-eyed deer.
And you put your lips down to the cool water. And
cute,
bam!
You cute little
right in the fucking
deer.
head. Now I ask you, do you care what the motherfucker that just shot you was wearing?
I'm not saying she didn't do. She did great in the role. And dude, I love Marissa Tomei. And George fucked up. He should have just kept his mouth shut. And
he should have
got a little bit of Marissa Tomei,
Because she liked fat, quirky guys.
She did, and that would have been the best little something George Costanza ever got. That's for sure.
Okay.
We digress.
What about Idiocracy?
So when is he in a prison in that one?
Almost the entire fucking movie.
Really?
Wow.
I just remember the Gatorade.
So he got thrown in jail right away when he went to the future because he didn't have the mark, right? Because they were...
I watched it twice.
He got in trouble for not having his tattoo, and he owed the hospital $1 billion.
Which was just chump change.
So they threw him in prison. But the reason that it's funny in prison is because when he was escaping from prison, he's like, no, I was in here. Just ask that guy. And that guy over there sat on my head. And he goes, "Oh, well, it doesn't show you're supposed to be released, so you're going to have to stay in prison." And he goes, well, go back and look at some more files. And then he's running and they hit a button that said escape, and the fucking machine gun turrets turn on each other and blow each other off the wall. And he finally escapes, but then he ends up back in there later because he was supposed to help crops grow.
He's just spending time in jail here and there. I mean, if I'm
Okay.
going to take that, the Demolition Man probably would be a movie about prison.
Maybe. The Running Man definitely is.
Yeah, because that's the only way you can get out is to go get killed on public TV. So
Kinda. Did you watch the same movie I did? Or are you talking
he's
about
in
the
prison,
book?
and the chick that he's holding hostage ends up going to prison too, and then they make him do the Running Man thing.
Well, he tried to escape prison because at first he was
Oh,
with the collars
the
that would
collars.
blow your fucking head off, right? Because you were paired up with
Well,
somebody.
and they had the guy takes it off, and then it explodes. That's right, I forgot.
And that
Dude.
guy on the TV show said, "Oh my God, who's that?" And he's like, "You can't have him. He's a federal prisoner." And he ended up complaining and getting him.
Because he wasn't going to kill those people from the helicopter. That's how he ended up in prison. That's right. I forgot
Right.
that. And then that old guy helps him. And then the two guys that were escaping with him end up in the Running Man thing with him.
Yes.
The black guy and the skinny white guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody dies except for him and his girlfriend, who only ended up with him
Maria Conchita Alonso.
Is that what her name is in real life? Because he kidnaps her and tries to.
When he was hiding, when he was escaped, yeah, he had gone to the wrong apartment.
That's like science fiction, like. Well, I mean, I guess not, because it's like you're not using prisoners in this world as violence for entertainment. But violence for entertainment has definitely become a huge part of like. But even now, maybe not, because like in football, you're not allowed to spear anybody anymore. You're not allowed to hit anybody hard. You're not allowed to fucking hit Tom Brady at the knee.
You know, you just made me think of another one. What's the fucking
The Longest Yard?
No, that's a football one. I was thinking of
But that was a prison movie too.
It was, yes, both of them.
Uh-huh.
The one in
The
70s with Burt
Reynolds,
and the one with Dipshit. And I'm sorry, Adam Sandler, I didn't mean to call you Dipshit.
He just couldn't think of what dipshit he was trying to refer to at that point in time. That sort of was a hollow apology.
No, and this one was a remake too, but they were Death Race. Where they
like
made
Death Race 2025 or something.
They made
right?
prisoners soup up cars and then race, but it was like seriously a race to the death, and it was like a demolition derby plus people shooting at them and everything else.
So they were using,
prisoners.
Prisoners is sort of like gladiators.
And it was a TV show.
I did do a TV show, which I didn't watch any of the movies or the TV show, to be perfectly honest with you.
No, it was a TV show in the movie.
Was it a TV? Oh, there were that
because they were televising it.
They were broadcasting it. Okay. Yeah, I didn't ever see those.
Okay, you said you wanted to talk science fiction. Do your science fiction thing. I know we mentioned The Running Man, which was sci-fi as far as I'm concerned, but
the only other one, because I brought up, of course, No Escape, but my other favorite one is Fortress. Fortress, because again, you're dealing with private prisons.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about that weird one, The Platform, dude.
That one's just like an allegory for fucking like critiquing capitalism and all that kind of stuff, which I think that it has a value to it, but I think it's just not really getting you anywhere. I think that there are better films that elucidate,
well, it could also be
class.
That thing that we were talking about where, if you're the king of the jungle, then you're on top. They never showed that in that movie.
Did you see? You saw it though,
yeah, because it's the one on Netflix, right? Where they lower fucking food from the top down, and whoever's at the bottom, they don't have shit.
So people like jump and kill themselves, or they end up eating each other, cutting somebody's pinky off and eating them, or something like that. But
you got a thing with pinkies, dude.
It's you know what? It goes back to Harlem Nights. You should off my pinky toe. It really does go back to Harlem Nights, which is a stupid movie too, but kind of really a long movie too.
I really wish you would redefine stupid, because Harlem Nights is not a stupid movie.
Dude, you got a bunch of, it's like the 1920s with black people playing gangsters.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't.
So you don't think that up until what, the
no,
1960s, that there were
I
black
just don't think.
gangsters?
I don't think that there was a lot of gangstering that looked like Tommy guns and wearing the slick outfits and having the cars, and I'm sure that there were plenty of places where they were running dice games and shit like that.
Well,
But I
so
don't think that the way that it was being expressed in that movie was. I think that was Eddie Murphy and whoever it was that was the producer having fun with an idea that just was.
I think they were having fun, but I think they were also kind of telling the truth because it was
What
probably
part? The part where they said throw that pussy up in the air and it says sunshine, or it's just like sunshine.
Bumpy Johnson, who, I mean, he was a real fucking guy and he ran numbers in Harlem for a long
I'm
time.
sure there were a lot of people that ran numbers in Harlem.
But he had a Tommy gun. He wasn't very funny though, I don't
Were they
think.
driving cars like that though?
Yeah, I mean, because that was the cars of the time.
All right. Well, let's go back to prison movies. Okay.
Okay.
So the platform was
Harlem Nights is a great movie.
it was not a great movie. It was kind of funny. The Sunshine Line always makes me laugh, dude.
The fucking fight scene when the pinky toe thing happened is
That makes
fucking
well, obviously that
hysterical,
makes me
dude.
laugh, dude, because it was is the fat lady, right? That says that you shut up my pinky toe.
Yeah.
Okay. So platform was okay, but I really do like you have to be able to grab onto like concepts that aren't just like metaphors fine for what it is, but at some point, and the other thing about platform, it was like a prison, but you had to admit yourself to it, didn't you? You had to go through like you put it in a like a
I don't remember that part. I've only seen it once.
you
I
you
didn't think it was great.
you have to like put in an application to get into that. So it's like the weirdest concept of prison I've ever seen. I don't know.
I saw one like that. It was called Spiderhead, where you had to apply for prison, but then they just did tests on you while you were in there.
Why would you? So did because they gave you money or something like that, or
No, because it was a private prison facility and they just tested on people.
so you're already a prisoner and you
But
apply
it was
as a prisoner
owned.
to get to a different one?
It was owned by a pharmaceutical company, and they were trying to figure out certain behavioral things.
So were they prisoners that were applying to get into that prison, or were they
No,
citizens?
they were prisoners.
Okay. But what would be the benefit of getting experimented on?
I don't think they knew they were going to get experimented on until once they were
And
there.
why would they apply?
It was out on some fucking fancy island in Washington. Maybe the scenery was good. Maybe they did have more freedom, like they could walk around and they had their own kitchens, and it was both men and
When was
women were
it?
there, so they
When
could
was the
fuck
when was
each
it made?
other. 2018.
So it's newer. So
Yeah.
you said Island. The Island? Was that a prison movie?
Yes, with Scarlett
Yeah,
Johansson.
and Ewan McGregor. That's like a weird backwards ass prison movie though, where you're being bred for your body parts to make somebody else healthy, and you can't leave. You can't get out of there. But you think that you can't leave because it's supposed to be uh, like nuclear outside,
Right.
except for on this one safe place called the Island. Everybody's stupid, you know.
Just trapped there like rats until those two get out.
And that's because they fucked up on the breeding. And Ewan McGregor's class started questioning the reality.
Yeah, they kept getting smarter and smarter with each generation, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I've only seen that a couple of times, and that's been a while.
And
Scarlett Johansson in that fucking suit, that's worth another watch. I'll have to check that out.
I watch that movie every now and again just because I like the concept of it at the very least. And a lot of things don't make sense, but the guy who plays that chases after him, the one that was in Amistad and uh, Blood Diamond, that's got the mark on his
Oh,
hand.
yeah.
The way that he turns in their favor at the end, I didn't think that any of that made any sense. It was kind of goofy. But still the concepts of breeding people and keeping them inside a.
Well, that's part of the problem with Hollywood, I think, and maybe they need to expand their idea of what is good and right and relatable.
I don't know how to say his name. How do you say his name?
Demon Hansu.
We'll go with that.
Um, because there's a thing where the bad guy can never win in Hollywood, and there's also a thing where at the end people have to somehow fucking get along. Like two people have to give a high five or shake hands or fucking give each other a hug or some bullshit. It sucks.
There's some tragedies in some of those movies. The other one though that I wanted to bring up though was, let me just do The Fortress for a minute.
That's
and then,
fine.
Okay,
Do your thing.
fuck you, motherfucker. So the reason why I liked The Fortress though was because, well, one thing that it makes sense to be, so that you aren't allowed to have kids in the fortress, because that's how they ended up in prison in the first place. They're trying to escape to Canada. They see that she's got military garb on, so they put him in this prison. It's a prison that's privately owned, so this is way before, it was like made in '92 or something like that. And the concept of private prisons is, this is the future. It's owned by this company called the Mentel Corporation. And when you go in there, and these are two very important concepts that I think that when you're thinking about the progress of, when you're thinking about the advancement, I hate the word progress there, so I'm not going to use the word progress, the advancement of certain types of weapons that you use against the prison population that are, in one moment, they're non-lethal, but in another moment they're absolutely lethal. So they give them these things they call intestinators when they put them in the prison. The prison is owned by this company called the Mentel Corporation. The Mentel Corporation does experiments on all kinds of things with regards to humans. One of them is making humans into like cyborg types of things, where you add certain enhancements to them with mechanical goods. But one thing that they put inside of all of the prisoners when they come in is these things called intestinators. And the intestinators go into your stomach. They're not going to come out. You're not going to shit them out. And they can produce pain at varying levels, and they can kill you. They can make them, there's a detonation device inside of it that can kill you. Another thing that they bring up inside of it is that they can see your thoughts, right? And while we are nowhere in a space to where a person can know exactly what it is we're thinking, I think that we take for granted the way in which psyops have been used against prisoners, ways that, like we talked about with regards to some of the testing that they've done in Palestine. Like one thing that's just a very simple thing, not a technical thing at all. You would have the military running back behind houses, and they would take glow sticks, and they would throw them, because you don't have a way to heat your house. You don't have a way to cool it off either. So you'd have to keep your windows open to get fresh anything at any point in time. But they would throw what did I just say? The glow sticks into their windows, and this is a way of letting. This may seem to be totally innocuous or not a big deal to a person that had never lived through it, but it was a way that the police and the military that would act against Palestinians would let them know that they had access to them whenever they want, at any point that they want. And that is a psychological concept that I think that we really take for granted when we think about the way that prisons have functioned, could function, and probably will function in the future. Like the psyops concept, like I said, the way that they use it in Fortress, where they're literally reading their mind. So like if you're having a sex dream, they don't want you to be enjoying your dreams too much, so they would set your intestinator off and hurt you, and it'd be sort of like this Pavlovian thing where your mind won't stray into these spaces where you're having pleasure, because the pleasure turns into pain. So that's as goofy as that fucking movie was, and it was totally fucking goofy. So goofy that they made a second one for whatever fucking reason. But they definitely touched on private prisons. They touched on lethal weapons. They touched on non-lethal weapons, and they touched on psyops in a way that I think a lot of those films didn't quite capture as well.
Well, back then, Christopher Lambert was pretty big, dude. Like he had just done the Highlander shit.
But I love Highlander, but that was horrible acting too. I mean, Christopher Lambert
He's
was
not
not a good
good,
actor.
dude.
Yeah.
Not good.
Hmm.
Because he was in a fucking gangster movie too that was supposed to be. Fuck, I can't remember what the name of it is. It's not The King of New York because that's Christopher Walken and Lawrence Fishburne.
Mortal Kombat, Beowulf, It's Not Over. Yeah, we're gonna have to go back. It was a '90s one.
I swear it has the New York in the title. It's either 80s or 90s, and it would be late 80s, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he what? You're right though. He was all over the place.
Yeah, Fortress was one of those. I think I only watched it once, but I know I've seen it. It's hard for me to turn a movie off, so I watched a lot of truly, truly shitty movies. But so, all right, we kind of touched on how trauma can happen when you're off at a younger age and you get sent to one of these places and how that might institutionalize you. We're coming up on an hour right now. We're at 56 minutes. So I don't want to start talking about something where we have to delve too deep because then that'll fuck up the next part two.
Part two. Hot Shots. Part two.
So you want to just close it out and kind of talk about some of the movies we're going to talk about in the next part?
Yeah. So what? So like in terms of trauma, what a.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I mean, we kind of touched on the youth trauma thing and how youth might fuck you up more, even though we didn't talk about Bad Boys, but I talked about that a lot on part whatever of the last one. But, you know, I want to talk about South Central. I want to talk about American History X.
Yeah. Blood in, blood out. Bound by
I want to
honor.
talk about American Me. There's really a lot of them, but
The Green Mile is a really cool movie, but I'm not sure how it enters into this discussion at all.
Well, The Green Mile might be the only one I've ever seen where there's actually a fucking nice guard. I mean, because you know Tom Hanks kind of.
They're all pretty decent, other than the Percy. Percy's an idiot, you know.
Yeah.
And he gets his after he kills Buffalo Bill, and he loses his mind.
Yeah, we didn't even fucking talk about like the Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, that's fun.
I mean,
that's a great psychological one, man. That is.
Well, and I don't know again if technically because that's a mental facility, not a prison, which I need to clarify that anyway. So when I talked about them launching cancer cells into New York Jews, it wasn't in prison. It was in a lockdown mental facility. So,
well, do you know which one it was by any chance?
No.
Okay, we'll have to figure that out.
Why? Do you know somebody that was in one of those?
I'm just curious what the name of the one
they. I'm pretty sure they just said New York, but and if I had to guess, I would say somewhere in the 5 boroughs. But
12 Monkeys is wonderful. But that's not really about prison. I mean, they call it a prison movie and some of the stuff that I looked at, but he's trying to get a pardon by going into these different spaces in the future, or the past, I mean, rather.
Well, isn't it both?
No, it's just because he's in the future. They're trying to figure out who the 12 Monkeys are, what the 12 Monkeys are, what it was that actually caused the.
Yeah, I know he never actually said, or they never actually showed it, but I thought he said, yeah, maybe it was just from jumping around because there was a lot of time jump in that.
He always is going to the past. He always he goes back. He ends up in World War I.
Right, I understand that, but
he never goes beyond
No, he never goes beyond where he started.
Yeah.
But I thought that he went, and maybe that's just my frame of reference, but I thought he would go from like, if he jumped way back, say to 1980, then he might end up back in 1985, and then he figured out that he fucked up and missed something, so he goes back to 1983, and then he figures out that it was missed again, so he went to 1991.
He doesn't have the ability, like he doesn't have like a time machine on
No,
him,
I know he doesn't, but I'm just talking about the way that
they're moving him.
Yeah. And maybe I'm wrong.
It's like what I would remember, I think, was that he would come back and then he would debrief them, and then they would send him to these other spots, and then they got frustrated and they're like, "You're not going to get your pardon," and then he's like, "Wait a minute, but this and that," and of course, what's her name? Not Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the weirdest case of what do they call that when your hostage falls in love with you?
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, Stockholm syndrome. That's it. Good pull. But that, I mean, I don't know whether or not that's even a prison movie. I mean, they called it a prison movie in some of the lists that I was looking at, but I don't even know if I call it a prison movie.
Well, again, I'm not sure. I mean, because all right, we're at like a minute 15 seconds over the hour.
Okay.
So, do you want to cut this off and go to part 2?
Yeah, let's go to part 2. So for part 2, we're gonna look at trauma deeper. We're gonna look at some of the stuff that was going on in L.A. in California writ large, specifically
since the 60s, probably.
Yeah, with both the Latino gangs, and then of course we're gonna talk about skinheads a little bit. That's gonna tie into the trauma shit. And anything else?
No, we'll talk about more movies in the next one at least.
So we're gonna say 720-334 roll here.
Oh yeah, I do have one other thing I want to say.
Uh-huh.
So again, I mentioned exclusive content on the last episodes, but it's not being forwarded to any of the other places.
Platforms, yeah, and we don't want it to be like that.
And I don't want people to miss it. You know, the 6 of you need to get the exclusive content if you want it. So it's still going to be on Spotify and Amazon, and
we'll just have episode
Google and whatever.
A B, or however you put it.
Yeah, 300 and 302 or 400 and 402.
Oh, like class. I get it.
Right.
Sorry, I shouldn't have spelled that out.
And then, so if subscribing isn't going to do you any good, but if you do want to throw some money our way, you can do donations through that, one time, monthly, whatever the case is.
That's all at your discretion, though, for now.
Yeah. So, shortbusdebateclub at yahoo.com. And the number he already gave.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you in after break.
Yeah.